And I just want to make sure that this is actually recording right.
All right, test. This is the test.
Okay, I see your waveform.
Do you see the waveform of my screw gun?
Hello, dig for bones.
Hello, and welcome to the Least Haunted Podcast.
I love the way you always say hello. Hello! All right, keep going.
Now I gotta say it over again.
No, you don't. Keep going.
And welcome to the Least Haunted Podcast, a place where science, skepticism, humor, and anthropology meet to discuss all things spooky, haunting, supernatural, and sometimes just the plain ridiculous. I am your host, Cody Franks, and joining me as almost always is a lifelong legendary lake lizard librarian lad, laughing like legions of lone lending lycanthropes looking left.
Garth. That is the most accurate description of me I've ever heard. Hi, everybody. This is Garth. Welcome to Least Haunted Podcast.
Yeah. That moniker came from Rain Zacket on Discord. I had to just swap the order of two words just because it then made it kind of flow a little bit better.
I liked it. That was great. Thank you. Rain Zacket?
Yes, on Discord. Join us on Discord, won't you?
Yes,
I hold
please.
out my invisible hand to you. Come join us, won't you?
This is the point in the podcast where we're going to get through it before you want to speed ahead and just say, hey, join us on Discord. We also have a Patreon. All
Tumblr,
the things, Tumblr.
Blue Sky.
And please, I keep forgetting to remind everybody, leave a review for us. We
Yes.
got a really good one the other day.
read it?
We should read the review to encourage people to also do reviews, because if you do one, we'll totally read that too if you have nice things to say.
Yeah, it's going to take me a second to remember where that review happened.
Was it probably, I think Apple, like
Might have been
iTunes is probably the best. I mean,
Yeah.
you leave a review on whatever podcast thing you listen to. I think Apple Podcasts is one of the bigger ones, so that would be maybe most helpful. But please leave a review wherever.
Okay, what do we got? We got two, actually.
Oh, okay. How about you read one and I'll read the other?
And one of them's from Rain Zacket.
Oh, nice. All right, why don't you do that one? I'm going to try to pull up podcasts here and see if I can find the other one.
Okay. Theirs is the most recent,
Oh, okay.
from January 18th, 2025. 5 stars. There are
Ooh.
so few podcasts that actually use science and skepticism to examine allegedly true paranormal phenomena. This is one of them, and it deserves more attention. Cody and Garth are funny and witty. Their discussions are always informative. I find myself learning something new each episode, and that is thanks to the in-depth research Cody provides for each topic. As someone who enjoys seeing how for the lack of a better term, the iconography of cryptids, aliens, ghosts, etc., and how certain perceptions enter the public zeitgeist.
That's nice.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rain Zacket.
Have you
I
found
am
it yet,
pronouncing that right. All right, so there was that was
it's like Rain Jacket with a Z.
that was just a couple weeks ago, and then there was one from December I see here, also 5 stars. This one says highly entertaining. This is quickly becoming one of my favorite podcasts. It is a remarkably well-researched, thank you, Cody. I'm sure he's talking about you, not Garth's Corners, deep dive into some of history's most famous and obscure books, specters, cryptids, spooks. Why did I see books? Oh, the P looked upside down to me for a second. Spooks, specters, cryptids, and creepies. With a healthy dose of humor, skepticism, some fantastic guests, and the occasional old-timey radio playlist on it brings its unique voice to a new topic every other week. Check out the latest episode or hop on the backwards carousel of time and check out the archive. Wow, thank you so much, Jojo Beanship. That's awesome. Yes, please leave us a review.
Yeah.
It's very good for our
Morale.
morale. Thank you. That's really what it's good for.
Man, today I went to go check the P.O. box, and I'd forgotten my key. And so I was like, oh, can you check box 22 for me? And the person came back, and they're like, oh, you just got, the local community newspaper.
Oh.
And I was like, oh, man, the good old Mountain Network News. If it weren't for that, I'd never get any mail. It really makes the post office box worth it. It's $160 a year now.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
We get good stuff in there every once in a while,
I'm
though.
wearing a hat
We're
that
gonna keep
I'm
it
wearing the
going.
hat that I got.
That's
in
right.
there.
You are an actual ghost, Cody. Wow,
Yes,
look at that.
yes,
So, enough
okay.
preambling.
Yeah.
What is our topic today?
I realized that we've only done one lake monster. I mean, we've done water monsters, but we've only done one lake monster, and that was Loch Ness
Loch
Monster.
Ness, yeah.
And I think that was episode 70, which was almost 2 years ago. So
Wow.
it's time
How
to do...
time flies.
Yeah, it's time to do another lake monster. I know I said I was going to do Madame Blavatsky, and I started to do research, and it's a big...
We're talking, it's a Harry Price two-parter situation.
Yes,
That's
yeah.
a lot to bite off.
Yeah,
let's
yeah.
do a lake monster.
And, for the last, week, I was fucking losing my mind with, everything.
Yes.
So-
I keep telling Cody, I'm recommending don't read the news. Just take a break.
No!
But no, he can't.
Self-punishment. Okay, so... Yeah, this is a Canadian story.
All right. Oh, man.
So I actually... I think
Canada's looking so good.
that's another reason I picked... There's two reasons I picked this. One... because it's Canadian, and I, in this war against Canada, I'm totally on the side of Canada.
Obviously.
Yes. So, with that, and then two is that the monster we're going to talk about is sometimes depicted as being snake-like,
Oh,
and
okay.
Chinese New Year, it's the year of the snake.
Oh, nice. Yeah,
So,
we just had the Lunar New Year a few days ago.
Yeah.
Right
So
on.
it's the year of the snake now. So I figured, hey, that's a good enough justification.
I like
right
it.
there.
I like it.
So we are going to travel to
Sorry, I just bumped my
Easel?
painting. I have an easel right next to me, and I bumped it.
easy on the easel, Garth.
Oh, sorry. I fucked up the beautiful soundscape we were establishing.
So we are going to go to British Columbia.
Okay.
Southeastern kind of corner. A place called the Okanagan country.
Are we going to go there on a thing, or are we just going to go there?
We're just going to go there.
Oh, okay.
We
We're there.
Yeah, instantaneous road trip. I mean,
Oh, we saved so much on gas, Cody.
yeah. Good thing we invented teleportation. No, I'm not going to canonically state that.
Yeah, that would ruin so much other
I'm
stuff.
not putting that in there.
All right, so we're in Canada now. Boy, it's cold.
The Okanagan country is what they call it. It's a very long valley that's on the eastern side of the Cascades. It's in the rain shadow of the Cascades.
Got
The
it.
climate's a little more arid, a little drier. A really good place for growing grapes, as it turns out. A lot of wine comes from this region.
Wow, that far north. Amazing.
Yeah. And during the last ice age, it was all under a glacier.
Mm-hmm.
And as the glacier melted about 11 to 10,000 years ago, it left behind 5 very large lakes that all are kind of in a line that run down this valley. The lakes are described as being fjord-like or fjord lakes.
Ooh, is that just because it's so far north? It seems like any lake that far toward the North Pole is a fjordy.
No, because we have to talk about how fjords are formed.
Yeah, how are fjords formed, and what makes a fjord
A fjord.
a fjord?
So, fjords are formed when glaciers...
Keep going like that.
No, I can't do that for the whole
Okay.
thing. So fjords are formed through glacial action. Glaciers.
Okay.
Long story short, glaciers. You find fjords. in
Okay, well now I know how they're formed. Cool. All right.
Well, so there's fjords in the South Island of New Zealand. You got fjords most famously in Norway.
Oh,
I
okay.
heard someone won an award for those fjords.
Yeah,
And
yes,
then,
that's right.
there's,
Slarty Brightfest.
Yeah, and then British Columbia and up into Alaska, you find fjords. Basically, they are where glaciers in the past carved down towards the sea.
Oh, not the glaciers from the future. They didn't carve the
Well,
fjords.
there's present.
I was
glaciers.
making a joke. Go ahead.
And the glaciers carved these really long, deep, narrow valleys towards the sea, and then for some reason at the very end, there's kind of like a lip, but it doesn't go.
okay.
It doesn't go above the water. It's just that the bottom, the depth of the fjord is really deep, and then suddenly the depth like rises up.
That's a perfect place for a parrot to perch. It's been pining.
If it wasn't underwater.
Oh, okay. Never mind. It's not.
Pining for the fjords? What kind of talk is that?
Okay, I guess that's not a great place for a parrot.
They filled with water, so fjords are waterways now. And if you were in a boat and you were scanning the bottom for the depth, you would find that like the average depth is really, really deep.
Okay.
And then as you're getting to the end of the fjord where it opens up to the sea, suddenly that sea, the bottom rises up. And so instead of being, say, like 1,300 feet, it's now like 500 feet deep.
Okay, it doesn't rise above the surface, but it's suddenly shallow
Yes,
right
yeah.
before it gets to the ocean.
Yeah,
Okay.
right as it exits out of that very long, narrow bay. So you can have this, though, not connected to the ocean. These are called freshwater fjords or fjord lakes. And that is where You have the same kind of geology of it, where it's this really narrow, deep pocket full of water.
It sounds like Loch Ness.
Yeah, except Loch Ness is formed through faulting action.
Oh, and this is glaciers,
and
so
this is glaciers.
That's why it's not Loch Ness isn't a fjord. Got
Yes,
it.
a fjord is made by glaciers. So you have the Okanagan Valley. It's got these 5 fjord-like lakes.
All in a row, huh?
All in a row.
Okay.
Working their way up. And the largest
They're
of these-
they're like inverted Hawaiian island chain, like an island chain, but it's the other way around because it's
Yeah, I guess that's one way to look at it.
Yeah. That's just a way I thought of. It's not a good way to look at it, but it is a way to look at it.
Yes. So Okanagan Lake, though, is the biggest of the 5. And how big is it?
How big is it, Cody?
It is 135 kilometers, or 84 miles long.
Ah, okay.
It's between 4 and 5 kilometers, or 2.5 to 3.1 miles wide.
Oh, yeah.
And it has a surface area of 348 square kilometers, or 135 square miles.
Oh, I'm picturing it. Yeah, that's very narrow.
Its average depth is about 76 meters, or 249 feet.
Okay.
The maximum depth at its deepest point is 232 meters, or 761 feet.
Okay.
It holds 24.6 cubic kilometers, or 5.9 cubic miles
I'm
of
getting
water.
a very good idea of every dimension of this. Okay.
It has 270 kilometers, or 170 miles of shoreline, and it is at an elevation of 342 meters, or 1,122 feet.
All right, so we got the circumference, we got the perimeter. Yeah, that's everything.
Yes.
All right, I know everything I need to know now.
And this series of lakes, the drainage is what is called the Okanagan River. And the Okanagan River runs across the Canadian border into Okanagan County, Washington. And then the
Okay.
river meets with the Columbia River.
So it does drain out. Does it fill up from rain?
Rain
Okay.
and snow melt.
Yeah,
and
I mean
other-
it is glacial water, but I'm sure
Yeah.
it's been filled and drained.
And like I said, it's in the rain shadow of the Cascades, so the environment there is a little bit drier.
Okay, it's inland enough. It's like arid there.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of like inner Oregon, and there is a little bit of desert in Washington too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No. I lived smack in the middle of Oregon in Bend, and everywhere to the east was the Badlands.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was just desert prairie all the way to Idaho.
So these glaciers melt.
I think it's the same north of there.
Yeah, it's the same kind of. Yeah, because you're in the rain shadow of the Cascades.
Yep.
So after
Rain shadow, not as wet as you might think by the name.
better than a moon shadow. No, wait, I'd
No,
rather
no,
have a
no,
moon
no.
shadow. Anyway, look, we had seasons in the sun, but those seasons are all gone. We're talking about Okanagan. So after the glaciers melt, these fjords fill up with fresh water and sediment. So
Oh, okay.
if you removed all the sediment from the bottom of Okanagan Lake, I think it actually would be like thousands of feet deep.
So it's just sediment down there.
Up until that point where then suddenly it's like 200 and something, feet to the surface.
Mm-hmm.
And after the ice disappeared, people could now start moving into the area.
Okay.
So the name Okanagan is a people, but that's not what they call themselves. They are actually the, forgive my pronunciation, I'm a little rusty on my international phonetic alphabet, but I think it is Sewelech.
Sewelech. Okay.
Yeah. And they're a Salish people.
Salish.
Yeah. It's a language family.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
And they have shared cultural traits. So there's like a coastal Salish, and these are like on the other side of the mountains. They're on the inland.
Okay,
And
gotcha.
as the archaeology suggests that they migrated up the river and came to this long valley. So they started at the Columbia River.
Oh, I always imagine the first peoples coming from Alaska just going down, but these guys were already down the Columbia and then they went back up.
Yeah, they come back up.
Okay, gotcha.
The actual word, I can't really pronounce.
Oh, go for it.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
Wait, I'll do it.
Oh, you want to try to pronounce this?
Yeah, let me see.
Okay, yeah, sure. Pronounce that.
All right.
I can guarantee you none of that was right.
I'll bet one of those syllables was right on. Oh, or maybe consonants. So what was that name that I mispronounced? What was that?
It means like the place with the point or looking out from the point, and it might actually refer to a local mountaintop.
Okay.
So it's a toponym. Which
Is that a word for the top of something?
no, a toponym is when something is it's a name for topography or a geological feature
Toponym.
has a name.
Ah.
Yeah, and then it's applied to the whole area. So there's a toponym, and from that, then the people get the name, and then the river gets the name, the valley gets the name, but that's not the name they use for themselves, but it's what the
It's sort of
Europeans
a big
applied.
country situation. It's the song and the album and the band.
And so these people, they've lived there for thousands of years, and they have a legend of a spirit that
Okay.
inhabits this particular lake.
Now we're getting into the
Yes.
meat of this.
Yeah.
The spiritual meat.
I want to get something clear, though. There are various translations of this name that you will find online. There's different versions of the story, including on Wikipedia, that are flat out wrong. Completely
Oh.
wrong. So the word is Nahaitik,
Okay.
and it means it's a water spirit, but it's tied to a snake. It's like a water snake. The translations that you will see suggest that it actually translates to something like water demon.
Oh,
And that is
okay.
not correct. You'll see people claim that it is a malevolent force and it is a demonic entity. That is not correct either.
Oh,
It is
Wikipedia got something wrong.
it is a embodiment of a force of nature. So
Okay.
it is neither good nor bad. It is the spirit of the lake, but it also encompasses all the life that comes from that lake. So
Oh, okay.
anything around, it's like the forest spirit from Princess Mononoke.
Okay, yeah.
So it's like
gotcha.
anything that derives its livelihood or existence is tied to the lake. So the animals that come to drink there, he's the spirit of them too.
Okay, well, they're drinking them, so
Yeah.
he's going to be getting
So
inside. Yeah.
being a force of nature, it can be kind of finicky.
Mm-hmm.
And so when in the past, when they would want to cross the lake, you would have to make offerings. Now, here's the other part where there's
okay.
a misconception and something that is just wrong. And I'll explain it, like why this myth is hurtful and wrong if you don't see it right away. The myth that gets
I'll
repeated,
tell you the minute that I
including
that I
on
see it.
Wikipedia, is that they would sacrifice live animals to appease the spirit before they crossed.
Oh, okay.
Right there, that's the thing. They
Oh.
would never do live animal sacrifices. The people, they're still there. You could talk to like, no,
That's not part of the culture?
no.
Okay.
What they were doing is that they'd make offerings of food or tobacco
Oh, okay.
and herbs. And that, because that's way more, that is totally the thing that
There's a
happens
big
in indigenous
difference.
cultures of like, when they talk about making offerings, they are not talking about like, oh, we're going to,
Well, I mean, it's Central America, there
Yes.
was human sacrifice, but yeah.
further north, yeah, that's not what's going
Okay,
on.
got it. What the hell was that?
That was a very weird noise.
We just heard
It almost sounded like an animal going, meh.
it sounded like a little bird going, meh. I don't know.
Wait.
It sounds like I think it's a bug trapped.
a bug?
I think it's a buzzing bug trapped in a web or something.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there is a legend of a chief that was going to cross and he didn't give the right offering. And so he and his whole family are in a canoe traveling across.
Uh-oh.
And halfway across, suddenly they are pulled under and everybody drowns.
Ah. Something got him, I wonder.
And this Nahaitik,
Nahaitik.
yeah, is known to reside around an area that today is called Squally Point, which is on the eastern shore next to like the only island in the lake, which is called Rattlesnake Island.
Oh, okay.
And that is, it lives underwater. That's where it's focused, is under that island.
The monster?
It's not a monster.
Oh,
spirit.
sorry, the spirit.
It's a spirit.
Yeah, see, I just applied my...
Yeah. It doesn't
My-
become a monster till later.
Uh-huh, got it, the spirit.
So it's the spirit. And they say that, yeah, it's where the name translates to like water snake or snake spirit.
Mm-hmm.
I want to show you a map of the lake.
Okay.
And so you can see something that makes a lot of sense.
I'll come around here. I'm crossing the table we sit at to get on
hold
Cody's mic for this. Oh, that is a thin lake.
But look at the shape of the lake. If you had to imagine that shape as an animal, there's the body, there's the open mouth. It's a
Oh.
snake.
Yeah, okay.
So
So it's a long wiggly lake, and at the very top it bisects and forks out, and it looks like the top and bottom jaw of a dragon or something with its mouth open. Nice.
So
yeah.
it would make sense. Like, I know they don't get high enough physically to see this, but if you're
Sure.
traveling the lake, you know the mental map of
you're
that.
imagining the shape
Yeah.
of it, and it's
Yeah.
obviously got a little mouth open at the
And
top.
so it's like, so
the north
when they
side.
talk about the spirit, it is the lake. It is all of the lake
Wow, so
is it.
they're swimming through
Yes.
the actual body.
of this giant spirit.
Yeah.
And because of the nature of, I might be getting ahead of myself, but just like when we talked about Loch Ness, there are certain currents and patterns that happen in that water because of the shape of the water, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have thermal currents of like the cold water sinking, warm water rising, and it creates so Lake Okanagan is considered very dangerous.
Okay.
I mean, it's a popular boating and recreational place now, but it is still considered pretty hazardous because it has these currents. It's known for a lot of water spouts, which is like when you have a dust devil, a small little like.
Oh,
tornado.
yeah.
Now put that on a lake.
Oh.
So there's water spouts too.
I was imagining this lake kind of without a whole lot of turbulence, just because it's a lake that has a thing draining
And it's
out. But it's
thin.
and it's thin, so it's surprising that it has that much activity.
Well, it's in this valley too, so you're getting
Yeah.
like air that might be coming up the Cascades, getting the hot air from the plains is sweeping up and climbing the Cascades to then go over,
And probably condensing,
and it creates a lot of weather patterns. So yeah, it
Okay.
can be calm 1 minute and then a
Wow.
squall on the lake. And so imagine being indigenous people in canoes crossing this.
Yeah,
It's a
I
hazard.
can see why they have a ceremony for good fortune
Yeah.
crossing it.
Yes.
Because boy, it could go bad.
And then the descriptions of like, it pulled them under. Well, it's like, there's like currents and stuff. Or it could even be that there's one of those water spouts that came over and tipped the
it's
canoe
not
over.
hard to sink a canoe.
Yes. So in 1811, the first Europeans enter the valley.
Okay.
They come from the south, the same way the original people entered.
Mm-hmm.
And they get there and immediately start prospecting.
The Garth's Corner, once we get to it, is all about the British Columbia and generally the Pacific Northwest. And boy, when you say Europeans, it could be anybody because
Yes.
at different points, the Spanish laid claim, the French, and then even the Russians were all going like, "Oh, this is mine."
Yeah.
And then the British and Americans for a very long time. We'll get into that later. But so this was somebody. We're not sure who.
They enter the area and they start prospecting and settling.
Mm-hmm.
And they start hearing these myths, this legend
Sure.
about this creature, and that's when you start hearing it referred to as a monster, a demon, and of course they're sacrificing animals. These are heathens,
Right.
you know? So it's a bunch of ethnocentric,
Yeah. This is their
indigophobia.
assumption.
That
you know.
just like in the Bay Area, we have Mount Diablo. Why is there a mountain called the Devil?
I
It's
never
because
thought
when the
about that.
Spanish first came here, it was a sacred mountain to the local indigenous
and
people.
because the indigenous people are all heathens, their
Yes,
sacred thing
they're
is
worshiping
called
the devil there.
Uh-huh.
Yes, and so that's where this starts to happen.
This is a common thing where people of some culture just have an idea of a ghost or spirit, and then the new people who learn about it are like, "Oh, the monster." It's like, yeah, we've seen that many times.
Communities of Europeans start to build up in the area, and of course they're displacing the local indigenous people, get them on the reservations, because reservations weren't just a American thing.
Okay, yeah. Well, that's not okay, but I was like, oh, that's interesting.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
And when
Canadian indigenous.
when the first
reservations.
Europeans entered the area, they claimed that the first guy who came there said, "Oh, there's only about 3,000 Indians," as he called them, living here.
Right.
But we don't know if that's accurate. It's
Yeah, I
estimated at
doubt
the
he
height-
did a very careful survey. He
It's
probably was
estimated
just
at the
guessing.
height of their culture in the area is probably about 12,000 people living in this valley,
Okay.
which is a long valley, but that's a good population. For
Yeah, I mean,
the
there wasn't a
time.
lot of population density
Yeah.
in the Americas, so that would be a pretty quite a
Yeah.
area,
So-
metropolitan area.
But the first account of something happening there is from, there's a guy who they describe him as a métis, so he'd be half indigenous, half European.
Oh, okay.
And he was taking a canoe across the lake with horses. He's a prospector, and he'd done this many times before. And he said he got about halfway across the lake, and something dragged the horses underwater and started to drag the canoe underwater, and he had to cut the rope.
Whoa!
So the canoe wouldn't sink, and he lost both the horses.
Oh wow!
I think what happened.
I'm picturing horses in a canoe.
No, the horses are swimming.
Horses can swim?
Yes.
Really?
Yes. And so he's got these horses tethered to each other, tied to the canoe.
I didn't know horses could swim.
Yes, that story must have been really confusing to you.
It was. I thought the horses were in the canoe. I was like, well,
No.
I can imagine why it sunk. It's horses.
Yeah, no, the horses are swimming next to the canoe. He gets about halfway across,
man.
and suddenly they're pulled under. Now, me thinks that one horse suddenly drowned, dragged the other one under, and now you've got two
tied together.
Yeah, and it's a long, it's like 3 kilometers across, and horses get tired, and so it starts to drag.
They have little hooves. That's the opposite of a paddle.
So it starts to drag the boat down, and he cuts it. But then, rather than admit that he was an idiot and drowned 2 horses, something under the water, which could be like. There's currents. There could be weird currents that was kind of.
Yeah, he might have believed it was something, or he might have made an excuse.
Yeah, so the horse is drowned. He almost goes under, but he didn't see what did it, right?
Right.
But all the Europeans but we know that the Indians had this myth of this demon, and they were sacrificing to it.
Must have been.
So you get an actual public panic in the area. They start patrolling the shoreline with weapons.
Wow.
Afraid that this thing's going to come out of the water and attack them.
Now, is this early 1800s, mid 1800s?
Mid 1800s.
Mid 1800s.
Because the first official sighting of it, the first time by a European who says, I saw this thing, is a lady named Susan Allison, and this is in 1872.
Okay.
She is a relatively early pioneer of the area. She comes with her father and her mom come to the area, and she grows up there around her, and actually becomes really well acquainted with the local indigenous people, and writes an ethnography of them, and has friends, and is actually recording customs. But whether or not she actually set the record straight on this thing not being a demon, but she said she saw it in the water, and she said it looked like a dinosaur.
Oh, I was hoping she'd have something more creative. They're always dinosaurs. Was it an apatosaurus with a long neck? What kind of dinosaur?
But also, this is 1872. The first description
this predates Nessie.
Yeah, Nessie isn't described as looking like a dinosaur until the 1930s.
That's right.
But the name Ogo-Pogo hasn't been applied yet.
That's the first I've heard of Oingo Boingo. Wait, I'm sorry, Ogo-Pogo? This is the first I'm hearing about this.
The Mystic Knights of the Ogo-Pogo. It actually comes from a song, and so the name isn't applied to this. They're just calling it the lake monster, or trying to say the indigenous word for it, or the Okanagan monster, right? But it gets the name Ogo-Pogo, which is, by the way,
Okanagan, Ogo-Pogo,
has nothing to do with the lake. Completely different etymology.
Oh, okay.
But I do want to point out, it is the palindrome lover's cryptid.
Oh, what else? What if you rearrange the letters? What is it?
Well, a palindrome is same forward and backwards.
Oh,
anagram is
right. Yeah. I mixed those
up.
So
Ogo-Pogo is a palindrome.
Oh, it's the same backwards.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it comes from in 1924, a popular English music hall. So, you have vaudeville going on.
I just went in my head through the letters in Ogo-Pogo. You're right. It is a palindrome.
Yes,
the music hall.
So you got vaudeville.
Vaudeville
was a thing.
Sure.
Well, in England, you got a similar situation going on at the same time as vaudeville, the music halls. And so there is a novelty song written in 1924 dubbed as the Ogo-Pogo, or the Funny Foxtrot.
Oh my gosh, can we play a clip?
Oh yeah, it's in the public domain. You fucking know I'm playing it.
All right, so if we get copyright strikes from YouTube for this, oh boy, we're gonna shake our fists and do nothing.
While it's starting, I'll just.
I'm loving it so far.
One fine day in Hindustan, I met a funny little man with googly eyes and lantern jaws,
a new silk hat and some old +4s. When I said to that quaint old chap, why do you carry that big steel trap, the butterfly net and that rusty gun? He replied, listen here, my son, I'm looking for the Ogo-Pogo, the funny little Ogo-Pogo. His mother was an earwig, his father was a whale. I'm going to put a little bit of salt on his tail. I want to find the Ogo-Pogo. He's playing on his old banjo.
Go.
Lord Mayor of London. The Lord Mayor of London. The Lord Mayor of London wants to pit him in the Lord Mayor show. Go Pogo! And then it repeats the first verse over.
That really slaps. That's it started out slow. I was like, all right, this sounds like an old song, which are usually kind of melodically kind of lame.
Yeah.
That was good.
And then there's
That's gonna be stuck in my head all
and then
day.
it repeats the first verse, and then has a second verse where it talks about the Ogo-Pogo playing his banjo for all the animals of the jungle.
In the Lord Mayor show.
Yeah.
On his old banjo.
The Lord Mayor of London. The Lord Mayor of London, Garth, is going to put him in the Lord Mayor's show.
That's what he does. That's the main duty of the Lord Mayor.
But he's not described as really being a water creature, other than his father was a whale.
Yeah,
and
but his mother
tail.
was an earwig, so
But the
I don't
sheet
know.
music, because it became a hit, the sheet
did.
music
Of course it did.
includes an illustration of the Ogo-Pogo. You want to
He
see
came
it?
into my dance hall. He played this song, and
On
I
a
said,
banjo.
"That's a number one. That's a number one record right there."
Come look at the Ogo-Pogo,
Okay.
Garth.
Oh yeah. He's
Is that what you were expecting?
I was expecting something more of a snake. So he's got the whole gremlin face, questionable facial features. Almost looks like it might be. Well, I'm not sure, but he's got little
He's got antennas,
antennas. He's got
because his
fish.
mother was an earwig, you see.
That's right, and his ass has scales, but just the ass, and then a tail, and he's wearing little boots, and he's playing the banjo.
Yeah. That's the Ogo-Pogo, the funny foxtrot. So that song jumps over the pond because it's a British song, and
Right.
Canada
Yep,
is the Commonwealth.
Canada was. I don't know if it had
Yes,
achieved independence by then.
1860.
Okay, so it was a newly formed thing,
Yeah.
but it's still part of
Yeah.
Britain, yeah,
Uh,
of the Commonwealth.
so this makes its rounds in 1924, and somehow that name Ogo-Pogo gets put on the thing in the lake.
Okay, so the name originated from England from this song,
Yeah.
and then it was applied to
Yes.
the lake spirit.
Because in the original
now
song,
Lake Monster.
the Ogo-Pogo is in Hindustan, which today we would call Pakistan.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Hindustan. Wow.
It was part of the British Empire.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny. The song starts off with talking about a little man with googly eyes.
Yeah.
and you think that that's like he's describing. No, that's the guy who's looking for the Ogo-Pogo.
Even this in search of the Ogo-Pogo, and the people doing that are googly eyed. Okay.
They call him Ogo-Pogo.
I just put a clip of Leonard Nimoy saying "In Search of Ogo-Pogo."
Did he say that? Was
there was an
Ogo-Pogo?
episode of
I
In
love
Search
it.
of about Ogo-Pogo.
Good sound drop
Okay,
there.
so now we're into like the 20th century. Now it has a name.
Ogo-Pogo.
Which is
Now I got
catchy.
a name to the face.
Yeah, it's a fun name. It's it's a palindrome. It's fun to say. And so then you start getting sightings off and on through the rest of the 20th century. You get people who come looking for it. Just like it's the same story as Nessie.
This is all the same stuff as Nessie. Did people fake Ogo-Pogos?
Kind of.
Okay, that's
So-
interesting.
There was this guy. His name was Captain Shorts.
All right.
We're doing a whole nother. Look, this is gonna happen again too, because it turns out the actual story of the Okanagan Lake and things that happen on it way more interesting than Ogo-Pogo. in the
Ogo-Pogo
water.
is an afterthought.
Yes, okay.
Captain
So,
Shorts
Captain
comes
Shorts.
onto the
So-
scene.
There's a few towns that are built around the lake. There's Kelowna, Penticton, Summerland, Peachland, and Otter Bay, and Vernon.
All right.
And there didn't used to be roads that went through British Columbia, right? You'd have trains, and the train only went as far as Penticton, which was in the southern end of the lake. From there, you had to take steamships that would travel up the lake to the various towns.
Oh, wow. And that was the only way. Because
That was
as
the
we
only
all
way.
know, Canada only has one road.
Follow the only road. Follow the only road. To go anywhere in Canada, you just follow the only road.
There was this enterprising guy in the late 1800s. He was Captain Shorts. Well, he was a guy, his last name was Shorts, and he was like a miner prospector. And he
Was the name Captain, the title Captain self-applied, or was he
well,
actually...
he gets a boat.
Oh, okay.
He
He's
decides
captain
he's going to
then.
start rowing people in a rowboat. He would like row because the steamer ships hadn't started running yet. So he's like, oh, I can then like get my rowboat loaded up with a bunch of cargo and passengers and row them up and down the lake.
All right. An
His
enterprising
first-
man.
His inaugural trip took 8 days to complete from one end of the lake to the other.
Oh, boy. Well, it is a long lake.
So he's only averaging about 8 miles a day.
Because he's rowing by hand here.
Yeah.
That's hard work.
And they said that he's also like a roaring alcoholic.
God.
And so at one point, like, he just got too fucking drunk and like, I'm just gonna row ashore and sleep here for a bit. You
Did he
people
have
just-
passengers?
Yes.
And they were just like, what the fuck?
Yes. And then eventually he
That's
buys
hilarious.
a little steam engine and mounts it to his canoe, and then that canoe catches fire and sinks into the lake. But he saves the engine and he gets another boat. That one sinks in the lake, but he gets another boat. Each time he like grows the boat and he starts actually getting some success to the point where eventually he has like a whole bunch of boats
And
a
that
crew.
boat stayed.
Yeah, and he's
the
got a-
strongest boat on Okanagan Lake.
And he gets a crew of like 8 different guys who are running boats for him. But then the railroad actually builds full-size steamships.
Oh,
and so he
okay.
can't really compete. And eventually he leaves the area and he dies as a prospector. They end up finding him like, hey man, nobody's seen any smoke coming out of old Captain Short's cabin for a few days.
Oh.
And they go and he's dead on the floor.
Yeah.
But you know, hey, the man died how he lived.
In a cabin.
Penniless on the floor.
Oh, I see. I was like,
Probably drunk.
in a cold cabin? Yes.
So anyway, steamships.
Steamships.
At one point, a steamship starts advertising that they have mounted guns onto their ship to protect passengers from the creature in the lake.
Okay, now is this due to actual fear or is this
No,
a
it's because
publicity stunt?
It might have been that they actually were like harassing indigenous people and like, oh, they're gonna.
okay.
It was like, so they're like, wink, wink. Oh,
It's for the lake
the
monster.
Okanagan
wink, wink.
monster, wink, wink, which means the Okanagan people who we have displaced.
Gotcha.
Yeah, right. Now in the 1970s, this is where we're gonna do another. You've met Captain Shorts.
Oh, yeah.
But now I'm going to tell you about another guy. We're going to talk about Eddie Haymore.
Eddie
Haymore.
Haymore.
He's actually Lebanese. He comes from Lebanon. And in the early 60s, he moves to Ottawa, Canada. And he's a barber.
Okay.
And he becomes very successful. And he starts building his business and getting into other businesses to the point where by the early 70s, he's pretty wealthy. And he travels to Lake Okanagan and he buys Rattlesnake Island.
Oh, wow.
So the island that the Ogo-Pogo supposedly lives under, he buys it and he decides he's going to build
Tourist trap?
he's going to build an amusement park
Yes.
on the island.
Nice.
Not just any amusement park. It is going to be not-
Ogo-Pogo land.
No, it's going to be Arabian themed.
What?
I know.
Dude.
What?
Dude.
Yeah.
Arabian themed.
So he starts building, he builds
That's like building a Harry Potter land in Florida. What the? Okay.
So he builds a replica of one of the pyramids, Great Pyramids, not to
Not
full
to
size.
scale.
Oh God, no!
This
It's made out of cinder
is like a
blocks.
Las Vegas, or no, probably a lot
He has a
smaller
little
than that.
miniature golf course on there.
Nice.
He builds a giant camel that you can buy ice cream out of. And he has big plans. He wants there to be eventually, there's going to be roller coasters. There will be a submarine ride that will take you under the down into the lake.
Is that one at least Ogo-Pogo themed? There's got to be some Ogo-Pogo.
I think he did have an Ogo-Pogo replica.
I would hope so. After all that.
But however, it doesn't come to fruition. What happens is that the government of British Columbia, the provincial government, steps in and says, hey man, we're kind of worried about like your septic plan. Like, where's all the duty going to go?
Into the lake.
Right.
Dude, when you're on an island in a lake, whatever your plan is, it's going in the lake.
Yeah, that's kind of what they say. And so they're like, okay, we're going to, you can't build your Arabian land there. And then like, he starts getting paranoid. He starts saying, I think there's a conspiracy against me to keep me from doing this. Like they're out to get me. So he's telling all the locals, who are also like part of the conspiracy, because they don't want an amusement park on a lake in the island. And so he's like, no, there's definitely something going on. So he decides, they basically like forced him to sell the island to the government. The government's like, look, you're not going to do
eminent domain.
And so he originally bought it for, I think, $180,000. They only pay him $40,000.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Damn.
So he gets a plan. I am going to send bombs in the mail.
Great plan. That, every time people try that, it works really well. That's how you get shit done.
Well, he doesn't actually follow through and build the bomb.
And then they'll know, and then they'll give me my island
He
back.
actually doesn't send the bombs, but he he sends things that implies that he has sent bombs, but he never did.
Oh,
so anyway,
okay.
they come and they arrest him.
Sure.
And then he's convinced there's some kind of conspiracy between his wife and a doctor friend, and they basically say, well, he's crazy. They have him committed. And his wife leaves him.
Is this sort of we're going to have you committed so you don't have jail time? Like...
No, it's more like you're a danger to yourself and
okay.
others.
So this wasn't
we're
a
gonna have you
plea
committed.
deal
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Okay, got it.
And then after he gets out, he's like, fuck this. I'm going back to Lebanon. So he goes to Lebanon. And he's talking to his cousins about, man, they really fucked me. Canada
I'm the
fucked
victim
me.
of this
Yes.
whole thing. Well, in fairness, they did pay him way less than he paid.
Yes, right?
That does suck.
Oh, before I forget, he actually did open the park, even though they told him he couldn't. And 700 people showed up.
Wouldn't you love to have a ticket stub from that? That
Yeah.
would be amazing.
Okay, so I'm sorry, I got the story backwards. He threatens the mail bombs because they won't let him have the park.
Right.
Then they arrest him.
Oh,
they
yeah,
find out that he never actually sent any bombs. They then force him to sell as part of a settlement against the government to dismiss the charges for $40,000.
Okay, I don't feel as bad for him now because that was the one way he was wronged, and he totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then he gets committed. Then he says, fuck it, I'm going back to Lebanon. He's talking to his cousins, telling them about how fucked up the deal was. And that shouldn't stand, man. This aggression will not stand.
Those Canadians fucked you.
So what's the next logical step, Garth? If you are Eddie...
He's all the way back in Lebanon. Maybe he could try to make an amusement park there. It would make more sense to do an Arabian-themed, no?
No, it's, hey, man, let's get some fucking assault rifles and let's occupy and take over the Canadian embassy in Beirut.
Okay, at least I thought he was going to try to get to Canada with assault rifles. No, he's going to take over the Canadian embassy.
And he does, and he demands, so he's holding 34 Canadian diplomats hostage in Beirut.
Oh my God.
And says, I want to speak to the Premier of Canada, one Elliot Trudeau. That's right,
Justin's
Trudeau.
dad.
Yes.
Wow. Did he get him on the line?
I don't think he did. The standoff only lasts 9 hours, and nobody is harmed. And then he leaves. Oh, because they basically get him to end it. They agree that, okay, we won't press any charges on you. We will take you back to Canada, and we will have a hearing and investigate your claim. So he gets basically...
That is the best way that could have ended.
And
the Canadians are so polite. That's so nice of them.
And then what happens is he goes back to Kelowna, which is the town on the side of the lake. There's a British Columbia Supreme Court ruling. They rule that, in fact, the provincial government had conspired against him. There was a grand conspiracy against him that was deemed, quote, highly improper, if not cruel, to drive him insane.
Wow.
And have him committed. And they awarded him $250,000 in compensation, but he couldn't have the island back.
I mean, the moral to this story...
Sometimes terrorism works.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what the takeaway is here.
But then we're going to take it one step to pettiness, because then he buys a big piece of land that's directly across the lake from Rattlesnake Island, and he builds a castle that is called the Peachland Castle, which he operates as a hotel. And then he has a giant statue made of him that's 12 foot tall that points across at the island.
I love this guy. Oh my gosh. Wow.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if he's still alive.
That statue is gonna be the episode art. That's amazing.
There's a lot of Ogo-Pogo art we could do.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
Okay, so I think we're gonna take a break for bones. We're gonna dig for some bones.
Okay, let's dig for some bones.
Oh, I told you Captain Shorts, but that was the whole point. Captain Shorts claimed he found the monster's bones.
Oh, well.
Sorry.
If Captain Shorts found the monster's bones, we better go confirm this.
Yes.
And
we'll
go
be back.
dig.
Yeah, and we'll be back.
What was that laugh? I asked myself. I'm trying to recreate that as much as possible. I don't think I've ever laughed like that in my life. That was new. What is that? This is my new laugh for 2024. New year, new laugh.
We have a spanking new podcast for your ear holes called Doom Generation.
Available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts.
Later, Doomers.
Do you like beer?
Of course you do.
Do you like good food?
You better believe it.
Then we have the show for you.
It's the Hoppy Trails Podcast.
I'm Nick.
I'm Travis. And on each episode of Hoppy Trails, we invite you to come along on our journey to explore craft beverages and the foods that accompany them.
Check out Hoppy Trails on hoppytrailspod.com or listen wherever you find your podcasts. Connect with us on Instagram at hoppytrailspod or reach out to hoppytrailspod@gmail.com. We would love to hear from you.
Come travel the Hoppy Trails with us, and remember to always say yes to the hoppy ending.
Cheers!
So Captain
Welcome
Shorts.
back from the bones, everybody. Those were some soggy bones, I have to say.
So I started telling the whole story of Captain Shorts, and I forgot the whole reason we brought him up. We asked if anybody had hoaxed anything, and Captain Shorts claimed that along the shore he found a bone of the lake creature. Turns out it was a whale vertebra, and nobody knows exactly what species of whale it came from, how it got there, whether or not he probably just bought it from somebody and brought it there as a publicity
That
stunt.
would be my guess.
And then I've heard both that bone was lost to history, but I've also heard claims that it's in the Kelowna Museum.
I've never heard of freshwater whales.
Yeah, that didn't happen.
I don't think that's a thing.
But anyway, he said he found that. Other things, let's see. So you get lots of people want to come and look for Ogo-Pogo.
Oh, yeah.
Including a group from Japan that showed up in 2000, I think it was. They claimed that they picked something up on sonar that was about like 12 meters long under the water. But what does Ogo-Pogo look like? Surely there has to be a consensus.
We've seen
right?
a lot of different variations. That map you showed me earlier was a snake with what looked like a cat's face.
Yeah.
To me. So that was one version.
You will hear people go, oh, everybody sees the same thing. They do not see the same thing at all. Some people say that it's light green. Some say it's dark green. Some say it's brown. Some say it's jet black. Some say it's kind of gray. Others describe a white belly. They say it's, it seems to be a
How
snake.
would they see its belly?
If it's rolling around in the water. They say it's like a snake, but it moves through an undulating thing where it kind of comes above the water, it goes under, up and down. But that's not how snakes swim.
Yeah,
snakes swim side
that's
to
how
side.
cartoon snakes swim. Yeah.
Yeah, because see, the thing is that reptiles and fish, when they swim side to side.
Yeah, I don't think
mammals
you can gain anything.
Mammals, when they swim, your otters, your seals, your cetaceans,
They
down.
do the up and down motion.
Yes.
Okay.
Not side to side.
So clearly Ogo-Pogo is a mammal.
Hold on to that.
Okay.
Some say that head sticks above the water, and that head sometimes looks like a snake. Some say it looks like a sheep. I've heard horse, I've heard cow or deer, but it's a head.
Uh-huh.
Rest assured.
It's got a head. Okay, this we can be sure of.
Yes. Some say it has whiskers. Sometimes it doesn't have whiskers. Sometimes there's flippers. Sometimes there's not flippers.
It's a shape-shifting
So the point
guy.
is, it can't be just one thing, because everybody has such varied descriptions
This
of what they're
lake
seeing.
is full of
different
monsters.
One thing I tell you for sure is, despite what you may have heard,
Ogo-Pogo is a plesiosaur. A f***ing plesiosaur.
It's not a fucking plesiosaur.
Oh, okay.
Because the lake didn't exist until about 10,000 years ago.
Plesiosaurs were around way before that.
It's been extinct for about 65 million years.
Mm-hmm.
And so it can't be that. I would make the argument that, some people say, well, what if something swam up from the ocean, right?
I mean, that would be a long trip because it has to go all the way up the Columbia River.
Yeah, Columbia River and then up. But salmon do it.
That's true.
Salmon go up there to spawn.
Can you imagine a bear in the salmon run opening its mouth and the Ogo-Pogo jumps out and just smashes into the bear?
Just eats the bear instead.
Yeah, exactly.
As it goes by. Biologists know pretty well what's in this lake because there's an ongoing effort right now that's the Okanagan River Restoration Project. There's 5 different dams. Each of the lakes has a dam that has artificially raised the surface level of the lake. Tahoe has the same thing. But it's to control flooding downstream, so they can accurately control the flow of water. This means that things that used to come up can't really come up. There's salmon ladders.
I was about to ask if they're making ladders, I would hope.
But there's debates about, like, could we remove the dams? They're like trying to see about how they can restore the entire riverway.
Wow.
But part of that
prevent
is
flooding too.
But part of that is that they have to keep accurate counts of the biodiversity. So they know there's 17 different species of fish that live in the lake.
Wow.
There's also a bunch of mammals. You've got otters.
Yeah, I figured because there was an Otter Bay or something.
Yeah, otters. You got beavers. All kinds of waterfowl. One thing that's brought up as a possible Ogo-Pogo, what it might be, that actually
a sandhill crane?
No.
Okay.
Sturgeon. People think it might be a sturgeon, but
that's a big fish.
But there's never been a sturgeon seen in the lake. In fact, there's a $10,000 reward for any evidence of a sturgeon in the lake that's never been claimed.
There's 17 other fish it could be. Why sturgeon?
Because sturgeons get
big. Because they're big. Okay.
Long-lived, big bottom feeders that rarely come to the surface.
Maybe it's just a big koi fish. Maybe it's like a huge
But it would have to be
fish.
very old at this point.
Oh,
but
yeah.
also the earliest descriptions of it are, well, one, it's just a spirit.
Yeah,
you know, and then if it does take a physical form, it's a snake. Not, you know.
Yeah.
So there's that. One theory that has some pretty good back into it is it's actually people seeing otters swimming in a line because otters will swim single file.
That's adorable.
To hide their numbers.
How many otters was that? I don't know. I just saw an adorable furry snake go
and they
by.
break the surface and they go under and they break the surface.
Are they like holding each other's ankles?
They just kind of follow each other's tail.
Okay.
And so like there's a
adorable.
really good illustration of somebody doing the silhouette of Ogo-Pogo as described by somebody with shiny black or brown humps and a long tail, and then like has beady eyes, smaller no ears, it has whiskers. That's the lead otter. Look it up. They keep swimming. So yeah, it's otters. It could be beavers with chainsaws.
Sure.
But what was that noise then? I heard a monster noise.
Sweet. Beaver with a chainsaw.
It's Canada, eh?
Yeah.
The other thing, though, is I talked about those currents, just like Loch Ness has, those water currents. On Okanagan, you do get freak rogue waves that'll happen. They just break the surface. Well, there are no boats, but there will be long waves because there's this like underwater
there's
current.
all that weird all that movement going on.
Yes, yeah, that happens under there. And a lot of the videos that you'll see that claim to be Ogo-Pogo sightings are very clearly waves. But
they're weird waves. So people
They're
are like,
weird
something
waves.
must be disturbing
Exactly.
the water.
Yeah, because there's no boat. That shouldn't be there. But it's like, actually, that's just the hydrology of the lake causes this to happen. Likewise, you can see the water spouts that come across. And if the things that people are seeing today as Ogo-Pogo are natural occurrences, that means the original indigenous people were seeing the exact same thing.
I was just thinking that, like, this actually really explains why there's this whole story.
Yes.
There's a bunch of weird things going on in the lake. There's got to be something disturbing it, and it is actually just very bizarre hydrodynamics. Geology
at play, local creatures that are there that are being misidentified. There was a very famous video that until recently you had to like pay to see, which always makes me question things like that. But it was taken in the 1970s. It's claimed to show Ogo-Pogo in the lake, but it's taken on 8mm film. It's like the Patterson film. It's really far away. It's hard to see. And it's taken from the highway that runs along Highway 97. By the way, I have actually driven along the shores of Lake Okanagan when I was a child.
Really?
My family,
oh, you guys went to Canada.
We went to Alaska and back. And on the drive down.
Drove. Wow.
And on the drive down, we followed along the side of the lake. We didn't stop there, and I didn't see Ogo-Pogo. But even as a kid, I knew Ogo-Pogo's in that lake, baby. But yeah, this guy stops along the side of the highway. He films this creature or something moving in the water. Recent analysis, they pretty much figured out where the film was taken from, and using modern analysis,
triangulation,
they figured that the distance was misjudged, and it's something that's a lot closer
and smaller.
Probably a beaver.
I think this exact thing happened with the Loch Ness Monster.
It's probably a beaver or even a waterfowl. So
maybe it's both. Maybe it's a waterfowl that landed on a beaver and had a really funny shape to it.
However, Okanagan Lake is a big tourism place. The city of Kelowna is the third largest city in British Columbia, and the area generates about $1 billion annually in tourism, be it people coming to ski and do winter sports or people coming to ski in the summer on the lake.
Because it's Canada, so different
it's a
kinds
filming
of skiing.
location for TV shows and films. And so as a tourist draw, Ogo-Pogo's not going anywhere.
Is that one of the main draws now? Like, if Ogo-Pogo weren't around, would...
It's a good wine region.
Okay, so there are other reasons people go there.
Yeah, in the 1800s, Europeans started growing fruit there. They found it was really good for growing certain kinds of fruit. Mm-hmm. That's why there's a peachland, or a peach... Yeah, one of the two peach. And so that moved into wine in, like, the 1960s. People started doing wine there, and that took off. So that's a big draw as well. But an aspect of it is like, hey, National Geographic comes like every couple of years to film here. History Channel's Monster Quest went there and filmed, and fuck those guys, because the whole name of the episode is Demon in the Lake, and they lean in hard to the idea of sacrifices, and they keep referring to it as the demon.
Yeah. What's so frustrating about those those History Channel type they lean into the spookiness of this. There's actually a really interesting history to all this. That's kind of the point of this podcast, really, is like, there's the story, but actually, if you look into the real story, it's much more interesting than just, it's a demon. It's like, no, there's all this other stuff that happened. And I'm sure they didn't cover any of that in this
I spent
episode.
A lot of my research time was just learning about the Okanagan Valley and stuff that used to happen there.
That's all super interesting.
Those steamers used to carry logs across for the logging industry. Some of those logs sank. Maybe they rise to the surface every once in a while with the currents and then drift back down. So people are seeing that.
Again, that happened with Nessie. I feel like every single explanation is
a bit of a bummer is that the city of Kelowna does have the highest crime statistics for any, like, it's like number 2 in all of Canada.
Well,
but
still, that's not saying much, I imagine.
They said that it's probably only because of a few repeat offenders, which made me think of the Trailer Park Boys skewing, the crime rate in this one city. They said it's all property crime. It's not violent crime.
Oh, okay.
It's like all property crime.
Well, it's been property crime is a time-honored tradition from stealing islands, and then it's been going on forever.
So I think that's where I'm gonna wrap it up with Ogo-Pogo.
All right, we're doing this a little backwards because I'm about to tell you all about the history of the Pacific Northwest and the way the borders changed between Britain and the U.S. Over the 1800s. So we're gonna do a little, because I just found that interesting. So it's time for Garth's Corner.
Tish, Columbia. It's Garth's Corner. About the changing borders of the Pacific Northwest.
Welcome, Cody, to the Garth's Corner about the changing borders of the Pacific Northwest. Yes. Yes.
I was like, I have notes.
What do you think of the song, Cody? He's wincing.
I'm very confused.
Did you think I was gonna do a Garth's Corner about something else?
No. I don't know if I would really call that a song. It's just like
I didn't call it a song. You're the one who called it a song.
It's a sound collage.
Yeah. Well, what do you think of Revolution 9? Is that not a song? It isn't.
Yeah, no comment.
So the Pacific Northwest. Now, back in the early 1800s, when the U.S. was expanding west, and Canada, which was the British, it was the British at that point, was also expanding west. They were getting into the fur trade all around what is now Oregon, Washington, British Columbia, Idaho. That whole area was obviously it had Native people there, but there weren't any Europeans really, except for a couple people had explored. I think Lewis and Clark had gone through
1802.
Yeah, right after
they
the
made
turn
it.
of
Yeah,
the
they
century.
followed the Columbia River, made it to Astoria, Oregon.
That's
or what is
right.
Astoria now? I think.
Yes, exactly. One of the first established places was Astoria, and that was a shipping place. And so there were a few different corporations that had interests there. There was a British one and a U.S. one, and basically. What?
I just realized the opportunity for a joke that I totally fucked up.
Oh.
Talking about Astoria. Well, I'm pretty sure, Garth, I'll cut this in. I'm pretty sure that there were like pirates in Astoria long before.
Pirates in Astoria.
That's the whole plot of the movie The Goonies.
Oh, I never saw The Goonies. I never saw The Goonies, Cody. You're supposed to be shocked.
Oh.
I guess he's not shocked
No,
anymore.
I'm not.
When he hears
I'm not shocked at all.
When you hear that I've never seen a movie everyone's seen. So
it's our time down here, Garth.
Both countries had a claim to the area, the U.S. and Britain, and there was a little bit of dispute, but neither wanted to go to war. So they decided, I've never heard of this really happening in history, that it would just be both. It was a mutual territory. It was jointly owned by both countries, and now this was the territory that's Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and British Columbia now. But right back then it was just called Oregon Country by the U.S. and the Columbia District by the British. And everybody living there was under both governments' laws. So it was a jointly owned.
So who are you paying taxes to?
I guess both. I don't know that the taxes worked a little differently back then, and I think it was because it was a territory and not like this wasn't like a state.
Yeah.
I think that people, it was truly it was just the frontier, and it was a bunch of people.
Yeah.
You know, it was
Free-for-all.
it was more or less lawless. It was kind of a free for all, but technically it was under both laws, even laws that contradicted each other. So it didn't really last that long, but for a while there. It's just such an odd thing because you think of the whole world is filled up with countries that have defined borders. And even if there's a dispute and they disagree, which does happen, they don't both agree that it's just both of theirs. It's just it's an odd thing. And
I think the only exception is like, is it Antarctica?
That is the other exception. Yeah, there are a few very, very small places. There's like 5 or 6 around the world now that are like the size of cities.
Yeah.
That are jointly owned by multiple countries, just because nobody wants to get into it. But they both have different opinions.
The DMZ.
but they're kind of it's not worth arguing about, so they just let it go. So there are a few instances of very small patches of area. And there's also Antarctica.
But I think in Antarctica there are like defined like roughly like this is our research area,
there
but
are,
nobody really
and they're
owns
pie
it.
slices aiming toward the South Pole.
Yeah.
And so the U.S. has some, Australia has quite a bit, and there's a few others, and some of them overlap. So and then there's some that aren't any, and that there's a section of Antarctica that isn't claimed by anybody, even in that regard, probably because you can't even get to it.
Who wants
it? Yeah. In the 1820s, the Hudson Bay Company, that was the British law enforcer, was headquartered in Fort Vancouver. That's in modern-day Washington State. And the U.S. was also establishing settlements in the Willamette Valley, in a place they were calling Oregon City, which I think turned into Portland. And so it was kind of those two main hubs. And basically, both wanted to take control, but they didn't want to go to war over it. So the U.S.'s idea was, let's just start sending people, and thus the Oregon Trail began.
Yeah.
If we can make it all Americans that are there and not as many British, will kind of de facto own it, and then they'll want to become part of the United States, and then
because they all came from the U.S.
And then, exactly, and then the people will. So that was sort of the approach, and it worked pretty well. So throughout the 1840s,
just throw wave after wave of human beings at the problem, like most of problems. In history,
like
until
most
it goes
problems.
away. Just
so we all know
grinder.
about the Oregon Trail. At least people in our generation.
Do you know it never actually says you died of dysentery?
I remember dying of a bunch of things. Maybe not dysentery.
I think it's the actual phrasing of "you have died of."
It's kind of
dysentery.
like "beam me up, Scotty." Never was said specifically.
Yes, yeah.
So people died of like other things though.
But dysentery was a cause, but just the way that's phrased.
I
it's
see.
not "you have died of dysentery." Yeah.
I remember it was always so nice when you'd go out and it was buffalo because they're so easy to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I played the Yukon Trail, which also is kind of relevant because it goes through British Columbia.
Yeah.
But I played the Yukon Trail in the later 90s, and that game fucking sucked because you would like break your ankle, and then you'd be stuck there. Then you'd get snowed in, so you just had to wait out the winter, and it would like show the same goddamn screen with little like calendar page like flipping.
Oh
like,
no.
You're like, mother,
the game that punishes you to teach you how hard it was to do the thing. I guess that's kind of the point.
Then you make it to Canada, they're like, oh, welcome to Canada, eh? Oh, what's that? You need at least 300 pounds of supplies before we'll let you enter Canada. And you're like, but I ate them all when I was stuck in my tent. Oh, you got to go back. Yeah, that's fucked.
So there were some more border disputes as more and more people showed up. Basically, they both wanted Puget Sound and Vancouver Island, which right now is at the very top of Washington State. There's the Olympic National Park, which is that corner, and Puget Sound is a body of water that goes in there, and then it kind of goes down towards Seattle. Yeah, and it was really good harbor. Like everybody wanted
Puget Sound is trippy.
It's beautiful up there.
But it's like it doesn't have waves like the sea does, but it is salt water.
Yeah. It's weird because it is connected to the ocean, but it's such a weird circuitous route to the bigger body of water that it's very
There's lots of islands that kind of block stuff. Yeah, and so
it's very unique that
rocky
way.
beaches, not sandy, because there's no wave action to break down.
Oh, that's why they're rocky. Yeah, that makes sense. So James K. Polk, who we all know from the They Might Be Giants song, campaigned on a slogan, 5440 or fight, which was 5440 being the latitude that they wanted. And that would have gone way into what is now British Columbia, but he's like, we will go to war over this. And fortunately, they were able to avoid that. But in 1846, the Oregon Treaty just continued the 49th parallel, which was the line going toward the west, all the way from like the Great Lakes, all the way across, and that was basically what cut up the rest of the United States and Canada. And then so then Canada got that little bit of territory. We got Puget Sound, they got Vancouver Island, and then after that, over the next few decades, the Oregon Territory got split up into Washington State and then Idaho, and a few more borders switched, and then we have what we have now. So there you go.
And then, not to say, then don't we get started on Alaska?
No, we're not even going to go there.
And,
this was Garth's corner of the contiguous 48 states. That corner of the country.
Yeah, the northwest corner.
Yes.
Also, a very apropos that you would be talking about borders with Canada. Well, we have a madman who wants to fucking invade Canada.
I think that's why it was on my mind. I was thinking about the shifting socio-political boundaries of things and how they keep just changing things on the map. Now we have the Gulf of America. Now we have this. What changed? Well, we also named Pluto a dwarf planet. What changed in Pluto? Fucking nothing. It's just what we're naming things. All of this is made up. There aren't real borders.
Yeah.
You know,
no,
it's all a shared
abstract idea.
Yes, exactly. It's a what was it? Noah Harari said it's there's subjective reality and there's intersubjective reality. And that's like money, which isn't real. It doesn't have real value unless you assign it and we all agree.
Yeah.
But you only agree because everyone else is going along with it, even though it's made up.
It's the social contract. It's the tacit consent I was talking about.
It's all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Religion works that way. The concept of human rights works that way. All these things are only as real as we allow them to be.
I remembered what I was going to say, and that is that Vancouver Island is where that's where my brain booted on. That's my earliest memory.
Oh, really?
There is a thing called Victoria Gardens, which is on the island of Vancouver. And in 1988, so I would have been 2. My family took a trip. We in a trailer in a pickup and drove up there and took the ferry and went to Victoria Gardens. And my first memory is of riding a wooden rocking horse in the gardens. There were 2 rocking horses, and I think they were red and yellow. And I was riding this. But want to hear something even stranger?
Yeah.
Our friend Nate, Ulysses Snowman.
Yeah, Ulysses Snowman.
Has the same first memory as I do. He's a year younger than me, and
Are
his
you
family also
serious?
went there. And
Yeah, I know he has he has family up there.
Yeah, up in the Puget Sound. Yeah, so they went up there, and so I was telling him, he's like, dude, that's fucking crazy. He's like, that's my first memory too, is Victoria Gardens and those rocking horses.
Shout out to Nate.
Yeah.
That's great. I don't think I share a first memory with anybody. I remember being really excited being able to toddle around in my house, and my dad coming out from the garden and also being excited. We were all celebrating that I could walk, basically.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a real memory or they were telling me about it later, but I got it in my head. So it's something, I think. Or it was a dream. Who knows?
I used to tell everybody that I was adopted from Canada. Because
it's like a variation of I have a Canadian girlfriend.
Well, no, it's because there are like no baby pictures of me. Because my parents were moving from one place to the other, and in the move, the vehicle that was carrying all my pictures caught fire.
Oh
and
my
burnt.
God!
And so,
your
like,
history, your library, the Library of Alexandria. Of
so
Cody's
all
young
the
life.
pictures of me start when I was 2 on this trip to Canada, which happens to be my earliest memory. And so I used to tell people, like,
you don't know if you existed before then.
And so the joke was like, it's like, oh yeah, no, they drove to Canada and adopted me. I was a dumpster baby. And then just happened to have cystic fibrosis, and they already had a kid with cystic fibrosis, so they had like pity on me.
Oh.
And my dad was a garbage man, and so they found out that I came from the garbage, and that was even more of a reason that they liked me. And so they drove to Canada and picked up a kid.
I love it. That's good. I'm gonna go with that. That's now canon for Cody's backstory.
Fictional backstory. Okay,
that was Garth's Corner. I don't know if we want to talk about it anymore. We could wax poetic about how real or not real borders are, but we could also move on.
Yeah, I had one last thought that occurred to me about the Lake Okanagan story.
Oh, okay.
I just wanted to follow up on, Eddie, the guy that like bought Stake Island and wanted to build his amusement park there, and there was a conspiracy against him. Yeah. But I still think it's a good thing they didn't build that amusement park there, because, like, dude, it's a sacred island to. Like that is,
I never thought to ask.
It's sacred indigenous land.
Was there anything else happening on that island that was important? So yeah.
Yeah, no, but I mean, it is. I mean, to the
let's not build an amusement park.
Yeah, to the Sequoidea people, that is the home of the spirit that is the lake. Is that island?
Yeah, you could build your amusement park a little ways away. You don't have to do it in the lake.
Yeah, so I think end of that story is like, yes, it's a real funny story, and we got this like bit about a petty revenge of like, I'm gonna have a giant statue of myself.
It was a great story. Yes.
But all that
But
said,
ultimately, we should not be. We shouldn't be necessarily siding with him as a hero of the story.
Yes, it's just a bunch of things that happened, Garth.
that is history, man. It is a bunch of things that happened.
Just a bunch of things that happened.
Well, you know what also happened? We got some Monster Squadron producers. That happened.
Yes. Once or twice. I think
like any movie that thinks it's clever that has a lazy writer and the character says, that happened. We got some Monster Squadron.
All right, so the Monster Squadron patron producers, we have Travis Alexander, The Bi Barbarian, Rachel Krieger, Tom Dahl, Justin Duckham, Kelly Flynn, Gunnar Franks, Carla Harrington, Havelock, Christina Hurley, New Jared, Ken with 2 N's, Brian Lamb, TJ Levenhagen, Alicia Overton, Jordan Ramey, a different one but the same one, Blue Roan, SETI Fan, and Tatum.
Thank you all. Thank you guys so much. You everybody's, you guys and gals and all the peoples. Thanks for being Monster Squadron members.
Yeah. And I'm trying to think what's going on. Oh,
we haven't.
I'm going camping with some of the Monster Squadron next week.
That's right. I'm sorry I can't come along. I am unfortunately. Is it disposed or indisposed?
Indisposed?
Yeah.
Detained.
I am detained. I'm detained, so I cannot. But
and I think,
have a good time, you guys.
I think Doomgen is joining us.
Oh, that's
we
so
the
fun.
Doomgen gals, and
you guys got to take a lot of pictures.
Yeah, it's
I
gonna be
can't
real
wait
fun.
to hear stories. I'll give you a debriefing when you get home.
Cool. And then
we haven't announced the that help hotline for a few episodes.
Oh, Trans
The
Lifeline?
Lifeline.
Yes,
Let's
Trans
do that.
Lifeline. Translifeline.org. Or if you're in the United States, 877-565-8860.
So yeah, if you need somebody to talk to in these fucked up times, there are people who will talk to you. So yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot going on.
Oh yeah.
And I'd like to say that, just to remind everybody that, hey, we'll get through this together.
Yes.
And until next time, the only thing that's haunted
is you.
Say goodbye.
Ogo-Pogo.
Of course. I mean, it's no contest.
Plesiosaur!
Well, case closed then. What was that?
The Least Haunted podcast is recorded before a dead studio audience and is a presentation of Sequoidea Productions, LLC.